When you think of Antarctica, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For most of us, it's probably the emperor penguin, right? Standing tall against these insane winds, raising their young in the toughest place on Earth, they're this global symbol of resilience. But that whole story is changing, fast, and it's pretty alarming.
So, here it is, the headline that really sent a shockwave through the conservation community. The International Union for Conservation of Nature, they're the ones who keep the official list of threatened species. They've moved the emperor penguin from near threatened all the way up to endangered. That is a massive jump, and it tells us a crisis is happening right now.
And this quote from Martin Harper at BirdLife International, well, it hits the nail on the head. This isn't just about one amazing bird. The emperor penguin is like a warning light for the entire planet. Its struggle is a direct message about just how fast things are changing. The future that scientists warn us about, it's here. So you have to wonder, right? How did we get here? How can a creature that has absolutely perfected survival in the extreme cold suddenly be in this much trouble? Well, the answer is hidden in the one thing that defines their entire world, the sea ice. But as it turns out, their relationship with that ice is way more complicated and way more fragile than we ever realized. To really understand what's happening to the penguins, we've got to look at the ice itself, because their survival is all about this incredible, delicate balancing act between two very different kinds of ice. Okay, so first up, you have something called fast ice, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's sea ice that's frozen fast to the coastline. It's solid, it's stable. For emperor penguins, this is everything. This is their nursery. It's the platform where they mate, lay eggs, and raise their chicks for a brutal 8 or 9 months. If that nursery cracks and breaks apart before the chicks are ready to swim, they don't make it. And the second key ingredient is something called a polynya. You can think of it as a hole in the ice, giving them access to the ocean. This is their grocery store. It's where they dive to hunt for fish and krill to feed themselves and their chicks. Now, for a long time, scientists had a pretty solid theory about how the penguins use these polynyas, but it turns out we had it wrong. This right here is a huge deal. It completely flipped our understanding of how they hunt. The old idea was that they needed these huge, stable polynyas that were there year after year, but some incredible new research showed the exact opposite. They actually thrive by using tiny temporary cracks in the ice, these little openings that might appear one day and be gone the next. And here's the visual proof. See those white lines? Those are the actual paths of penguins that were being tracked by scientists. Now look at the colored blobs. Those are the temporary pop-up cracks in the ice. It turns out the penguins were spending almost a quarter of their hunting time in these tiny fast food windows. It's an amazing strategy. Have a super stable nursery right next to a constantly changing buffet. It's a life lived right on the edge, and that edge is starting to crumble. So what happens when this incredibly fragile system fails? Well, the consequences are just catastrophic. We're going to look at 2 specific events that really sent shockwaves through the scientific world. First up is Halley Bay. And look, this wasn't just any colony. It was a penguin metropolis. For decades, it was the second largest colony on the entire planet, home to as many as 25,000 breeding pairs. That's a huge chunk of the entire global population. It was supposed to be a symbol of stability. And then, in 2016, the unthinkable happened. Weirdly stormy weather caused the fast ice, that nursery, to shatter and break apart way too early, before the chicks could survive in the water. The result was a total breeding failure. And then in 2017, it happened again. And in 2018, for a 3rd year in a row, the nursery was destroyed. After 3 years, this massive colony had effectively vanished. As Dr. Phil Trathan of the British Antarctic Survey put it, a failure this complete, for this long, had just never been seen before at this site. For a place that had been a penguin stronghold for over 60 years, this was a stunning collapse. It was a huge red flag that something fundamental was changing. And you might hope that Halley Bay was a tragic one-off event. It wasn't. Just a few years later, in 2022, an even bigger disaster happened over in the Bellingshausen Sea region. And here, the satellite images showed something even more terrifying. In November, a critical month for the chicks, there was 100% sea ice loss. It was all just gone. So what did that mean for the penguins on the ground? The conclusion is just gut-wrenching. In that one area, 4 of the 5 known colonies suffered a total breeding failure. It is very likely that from those 4 bustling nurseries, not a single chick survived. The scale of that loss is just hard to wrap your head around.
You can really hear the heartbreak and the shock in this quote from Peter Fretwell, one of the scientists who tracks these colonies from space. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about a massive loss of life. And it's happening at a speed that's blowing past even the most pessimistic scientific predictions. So you have these individual disasters, and now they're all starting to add up. They're creating this terrifying trend in the overall population numbers, and that is what forced the big official change in their conservation status. So here it is, the official reclassification. And moving from near threatened to endangered isn't just a word change. It is a formal declaration that this species is now facing a very, very high risk of extinction in the wild. And this chart really shows you why the alarm bells are just screaming right now. An older analysis, up to 2018, showed about a 9.5% decline. Not great, but a more recent look at a key part of Antarctica saw a decline of 22% by 2024. The rate of loss isn't just happening, it's speeding up. And here's maybe the most chilling assessment of all, again from Dr. Fretwell. He says flat out that what they are seeing happen right now is worse than even the most pessimistic, worst-case computer models predicted for this point in the century. Reality is actually worse than our worst fears. And this is where it's all headed if we don't change course. Scientists are now projecting that if current warming trends continue, more than 90% of all emperor penguin colonies will be quasi-extinct. That means their numbers will be too small to ever bounce back by the year 2100. So let's zoom out. What does all of this really mean? Well, the story of the emperor penguin isn't just a sad story about melting ice. It's a symptom of a much, much bigger problem. You know, while the loss of that stable, fast ice is definitely the main problem, they're kind of getting hit from all sides. Climate change is also making storms more frequent. Industrial fishing is putting more pressure on their main food source, krill, and with less ice, it's easier for predators to get to them. It is a multi-frontal assault. This quote from Philip Traffin really brings it all home. Emperor penguins are what's called a sentinel species. They're like the canary in the coal mine for the whole planet. Their survival is a direct report card on how we're doing at tackling climate change. They are sending us a very clear message. And so we end with this question. The single most resilient creature in the world's most extreme place is now officially endangered because we are changing its world faster than it can possibly adapt. The emperor penguin is sending a signal from the very bottom of the planet, and the only question left is, are we listening?